Hey everyone, Andrew back for another Barista Basics video. So as you can tell from the title of this video, it's going to be a little bit different today. Firstly, because the information that I'm going to provide in this video is not, it doesn't specifically pertain to a coffee shop setting or a work environment, but of course, the advice is more general. But of course, that means that it can be applied to the work environment or workplace setting. So I felt that it would be appropriate still to include it under, this sort of Barista Basics series, not that that really matters. Anyways, we can go ahead and get into the topic of the video, which, as you can tell from the title, is how to support and uplift people of color. Now, this is of course a very important discussion, one that is even more pertinent now, but has been pertinent throughout my lifetime, since before I was born, since before my parents were born, my grandparents were born. It's been important since Black people got brought over to this country as slaves. And finally now, we're starting to be more open with these dialogues. So I thought I would maybe try to contribute a little bit and provide some advice to... We love that hornet chilling out right there. We're just gonna take a few steps back. That didn't really make a difference. Please don't come towards me. Anyways, sorry. You know what happened in the last video? I got wigged out by the wasp, so now I'm like really eyeing it. Sorry, but yes, so this information is very important, obviously, so we can go ahead and get into it. Actually, before I get into it as well, I just want to say that obviously I'm not some sort of like holier than thou, like moral, God or anything. I'm just a person, but a person who, has been trying to actively become a better person and learn to respect people more. And, I'm not here to pat myself on the back, but, I feel like I have some useful information that would be helpful for some people to hear, which is why I felt the need to create this video. So I hope it's not misunderstood in any way. I feel like the only people who probably would misunderstand it anyway are racist people or like all lives matter people. And we don't really need their opinions anyways, so it doesn't matter. But I can actually go ahead and provide the information that I have been alluding to this whole time. So sort of the first tip that I have, which I feel like is the most important in a, interpersonal sense, would be to actively and openly and willingly, of course, engage in dialogue with people of color, specifically Black people. And I'm just gonna, like I said, obviously all of this information can apply to people of color in general, people that aren't white, but given our current climate, I know myself, and I'm probably going to end up just saying Black people throughout this video, but know that I may use the terms interchangeably. They're not the same, obviously, but you get what I mean. We understand what I'm talking about. So it's really important to engage in dialogue, and that, and I'm not saying that to mean like, oh, how are you, like small talk, how's the weather's nice today, how about them Yanks, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actually deep, profound, uncomfortable conversations. You should be engaging in dialogue that makes you, as a white person, as an ally, uncomfortable, because that's how you know that you're hearing the truth, that that your Black colleague, your Black coworker, your Black friend, whomever, a Black stranger that feels the need to vent to you at the moment, whatever the situation may be, that they are providing you some real information if you feel uncomfortable about it. Which, obviously, people don't like being uncomfortable, but, there are certain things where you can avoid discomfort, of course, but something like this, which is astronomically important, your discomfort shouldn't, it doesn't mean anything, So the point being is that, yes, if, your Black friend comes up to you and wants to, complain, or they have to vent about a negative interaction they had with a white person, or they felt that, there were some microaggressions used against them by somebody, or if, if you want to relate it to a work setting. Specifically, if you work in some sort of retail place, and a cop walks in to your store or whatever, and your black colleague, your black coworker, feels the need to share with you their discomfort about that, you should be receptive to that and open to that, because, especially in times like these, sentiments are very high, and the majority of these sentiments are not positive, and, people need to vent. Everybody needs, an ear to listen, somebody to talk to, and so if you can have an open mind and, put your ego to the side, like, if your black friend comes up to you and is, like I said, complaining about white people or whatever, and you're white, it doesn't matter. As in, like, the way you feel about what they're talking about doesn't matter, because there are bigger fish to fry. There are innocent black people being murdered every day by police, which is a much bigger issue than the way you feel about a black person complaining about, or, venting to you about systematic oppression and the prison industrial complex and this, that, and the other. Your feelings, I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's feelings, of course. Everybody's feelings are valid, except if you're racist, or a Nazi. But for the most part, everybody's feelings are valid. So you're allowed to feel uncomfortable, but what you need to do is get over that hurdle and not just immediately shut off and not be receptive to the information that's, being put forth, because the only way that you can advance and become a better ally, become a better advocate, a better activist, is to learn. Education is key, and this is going to relate to another point that I'm going to get to later, but education is key, and engaging in these dialogues is very key and super important, even if it makes you uncomfortable. And if it does make you uncomfortable, then that's how you know you're learning. But yes, so that's kind of the first bit of advice. The second piece of advice I have would be, it relates to something that I mentioned just previously, which are microaggressions, which relate heavily to unconscious bias. And of course, this is something that is easier said than done. Nobody's perfect with this. I'm not perfect with this even. I'm not a perfect being. But unconscious bias, as the name sort of implies, is bias you hold against another person, usually because of how you, how you perceive them, whether that be by their skin color, or, how you perceive their sexual orientation or their gender or whatever. But unconscious bias is having, this sort of prejudice, these sort of assumptions, these stereotypes against these people, but it's unconscious. It's something that has been, ingrained in your mind, and you've sort of have been conditioned to think this way, by society and by the media, whatever, perhaps even by your family and friends. But yeah, let's rev up that truck. Sorry, but yes, so unconscious bias and microaggressions, these are obviously something that everybody struggles with, but it's really important to be mindful of it, and first of all, to admit that you do it. That's the first step, is admitting, like I just did. I mean, I try, what's with bugs? When you film outside, it's like bugs want to hop on you. What a foreign concept. But point being, like, I very easily could admit that right there. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm not, I still have unconscious biases, and I still, honestly, I don't know. I don't think I really do microaggressions anymore, but, I can never be too sure, which is why it's even more important to be even more active about it, and even more persistent in trying to negate these, microaggressions. And to provide some examples of that, I remember, I haven't really heard this much recently, but I remember, when I was like in middle school and stuff, and even younger, I would hear this all the time, like, a parent or like, some sort of teacher, or even like older students or whatever would, approach a black student and be like, you're so well spoken, you're so eloquent, you speak well, which, a compliment's nice, but they would never say that to anybody else. They wouldn't say that to a white person, because essentially, in their mind, they have a certain perception of black people, and, a black person being quote unquote well spoken or eloquent, whatever the hell that means, anyways, didn't fit their perception. So they felt the need, this was sort of like a rare case. So they felt the need to compliment them on that. And you see, that's sort of like a backhanded compliment. So that is an example of one. Another one would be, if you, see a black woman with beautiful hair, of course you can compliment her and stuff, but, being like, oh my God, your hair is so beautiful. I like your hairstylist, I could never pull that off. You're like, can I touch your hair? Oh my God, can I please touch your hair? It looks so like, the texture looks so interesting. Can I touch it? Let me like get my hands up in it. Like, that is not okay. First of all, personal space just in general, but specifically there, it's not like her hair is some sort of, it's not a petting zoo. It's not some sort of exhibit for you to marvel at and, think as some sort of exotic, foreign concept. It's hair and it's beautiful, of course, but, making them sort of feel like, they're being looked under a microscope in a not positive way is not helpful. So that's like another example of a microaggression. Probably, some examples of unconscious bias as well, which play into those, would be, if you, and this is how it could relate to, a coffee shop or any sort of workplace setting, but I guess more specifically, retail or places where customers actually enter the store. If you see a black person walk into your store and then you immediately feel the need to like, keep an extra eye out or be a little more vigilant, in case they steal something or whatever, that's unconscious bias. That, that's not founded on any, the only reason you're doing that is because they're black. It's not like that person is shown to you in any way, shape, or form that they are capable of stealing or that they have any motivation to do that or, do any other sort of nefarious deed. So that would be another example of unconscious bias. Or, if you are walking down the street, on the sidewalk, and then you see a black person, walking the opposite direction, approaching you, and you, subconsciously feel the need to cross the street, for whatever reason, that's another example of unconscious bias. And of course, these things happen. Of course, they shouldn't happen, but, growing up white, these things become like they become ingrained in your mind, kind of. So it's hard to fight them, but it's important that you do. And of course, like I said, nobody's perfect, but it's very important to try. Actually, not, trying is nice, but you have to succeed. You can't, it's not like you can't hold on to these forever, which is easier said than done, of course, but like I said, that's why being active about it, and, being mindful is the first thing. Like I said, admitting is the first step. So admitting that you do these things, and recognizing when you do them, shows, first of all, that you care, and then also allows you to be more mindful of it in the future and avoid it in the future. Moving on to the third piece of advice, which relates to which I sort of alluded to a little bit in the first point, which is about educating. Now, sorry, I had a little bit of a burp there. Educating. So it's really important to call people out, even if it's your family or friends. Like if you see a family member sharing something racist or, something problematic on Facebook, call them out. Don't be afraid to call them out. Like it's, there's just like more important things at hand. Like, that's the way I said that is not exactly right. Like there's bigger fish to fry in a way. Like, what I'm trying to say is that black people have much bigger problems than that. Take me for example. I mean, I'm not afraid to call somebody out, of course, but say I see like, one of my cousins or like one of my aunts or something post something problematic on Facebook, and I'm like, oh well, I don't agree with that, but I don't want to like call her out or like embarrass her on Facebook or like, have a bad relationship with her. That's what I'm saying. That's what, there are bigger fish to fry. Like the fact that that's the most of your worries when there are black people that are scared to go outside or wear a hoodie or, you know, jog in their neighborhood or walk around at night or even sleep in their bed. Like, they have those things to worry about. And this is what you're worrying about? You're worrying about, you know, having, like, your aunt having a bad taste in her mouth about you because you called her out for being racist. Like, it doesn't matter. Call her out, you know? Call your friends out. It's super important to hold people accountable because, you know, that is how you educate people, and that's how people learn. And like I said in the first point, education is key. And the only way that people can really change is through educating. So that is also super important of how you can obviously support people of color, because if you help educate and you know, call people out on their shit when it needs to be called out, then obviously that's only helping the cause. Yes, and so to move on to the last point, this is the one that isn't necessarily super pertinent to your workplace, but it, you know, could be, depending on where you work. But protesting is super, like, and demonstrating and, you know, marching, whatever, is super, super important and key. Especially now that, you know, there's this momentum going, you know, there are actual things that have been changing. I read today that Minneapolis is planning on defunding their police department. Well, I don't know. I read the article and I can't go into the specifics of it, but, you know, long story short, that's essentially what they're doing. And, you know, police officers are finally being held accountable for their actions, some of them anyways. But point being, things are, you know, things are actually little by little starting to change a little bit, but that doesn't mean that it's, you know, time to just throw in the towel. Okay, good job, we're done. The battle's just beginning, you know. This is something that is like a long haul effort, a long run effort. So protesting and demonstrating are super important and are going to continue to be necessary. Now, of course, if you're not comfortable doing these things, you know, that's understandable. Your reasons for that are your own, whatever. But there are other ways that you can also support, you know, this community and organizations that help uplift these communities. You know, and you can do that by signing petitions. You know, there are countless petitions online, or, you know, donating to the NAACP, or donating to regional bail funds, or, you know, donating to, you know, sort of more regional or even statewide or national organizations that help to support and uplift people of color, Black people. And, you know, like I said, educating is also very important. You know, these are also things that you can do. And of course, you know, it is important to be, like, persistent with these things. You know, you can't just, like, you know, donations are kind of a different thing because people have different financial, you know, situations. But, you know, you can't just, like, share one link on Twitter or, like, black out your Instagram or whatever for a day. I don't even understand what that was about. But, like, you know, black out your Instagram for a day and think that that's going to make a big difference. Because it's really not. You know, sharing the link is a bit more useful. But point being is that it's something that needs to be a continued effort. But yeah, so that are all the little bits of advice that I have for the video. Again, I just want to reiterate that I'm not trying to act like some sort of expert on this topic, or, you know, like I am in any position to, you know, talk down on you or anything. That's not the intention of this video. The intention is just to inform on information that I have, you know, gathered throughout my time of, you know, growing up, and information that I've gathered from other people as well. So I thought it would be useful to share that. But yes, with all that said, I can go ahead and conclude. I hope that you guys are having a good day. I hope that you were staying safe and sane, healthy, motivated, and entertained. Did not forget that one. And if you're protesting, I hope that you are staying extra super duper duper safe. Be sure to have an emergency contact or two, you know, in case something goes awry, because, you know, you never know how these police are going to act at these things, apparently. Not that that's a surprise, but whatever. Point being, have an emergency contact or two, trustworthy, at that, because that's very important. And of course, like I said, if you can't protest or you don't feel comfortable, whatever, there are other avenues that you can explore to help support the movement. But yeah, so that's it for today's video. If, you know, you were offended by any part of this video, then I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry that you are ignorant. But at least I hope there was some sliver that you could at least take with you in this video. But yeah, with all that said, I do hope you take care, and I hope you're staying safe. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.